What's up, guys? My name is Andres. This is the VC Brewery Show. Today on the show, this is part one. So it'll be two parts to this episode. Part one, this is Andres Borowiak from Boomhut Mobile Canning. He invited me to his home. Just so happens it was one street over from where I work. Nice home, good view in the background. He tells his story of how he started and how he's grown into the industry. So enjoy the show. Here we go.
It's not a bad backdrop though, right?
It is not. This is a very beautiful.
This is all Ventura County open space right here, so it'll never get developed on.
That's good. You get a lot of wildlife.
We do. We get some incredible birds out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we've seen great blue herons and we've seen hawks of all different styles, and just there's different times of day where they fly in and fly out.
Right.
So in the mornings they'll all head north this direction, and then at night they'll all come back in. A lot of them live down this valley. You get frogs galore down in the river because there's a river that runs right down here. It's crazy, like all this stuff. It's nice.
We get deer.
Nice.
And then security, like a couple weeks back, saw their first mountain lion on site.
Yep.
They got pictures of it.
I bet,
It looks pretty beefy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right, there we go.
All right.
Andres Borowiak, Boomhut Mobile Canning.
Correct.
We're here on site at your beautiful home. Thanks for having me.
Boomhut Ranch. Yep.
Boomhut Ranch.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us in. Why don't you go ahead and let us know, I guess, where Boomhut started and I assume you've been pretty busy during this whole past year.
Sure, man. Yeah, no. Boomhut comes out of probably the best way to say it is that, you know, like a lot of people in the industry, I was a beer nerd, and I had a love for craft beer, independent beer, and some shitty beer too.
Yeah.
Occasionally, of course. I'm not
Not everyone has
a super snob, although these days I my friends would maybe disagree a little bit. But I like to just be well versed, and my first sort of inclination this could be a good idea was when I went as a founding member of the Casa Agria Specialty Ales brewery up in Oxnard, which is your hometown,
right,
I know.
Right.
Still my favorite brewery in the world. Those guys are awesome. They're friends of mine now too, after working with them for 4 years. But I went to their first ever can release back in January of 2017. They did the Del Norte hazy IPA, or hazy. Yeah, it was a hazy. I asked them kind of what they went through to get a beer packaged, and it was without the intent of even jumping into this thing, just as a guy that had known the brewers and the owners for a little while, and had an interest in what they went through. And my friend Mike and I listened to the owner there describe the process of hiring a mobile canner, which was not easy, even just to get in touch with this company, and then the 3-month-long process that they went through to actually get them out there and get the beer packaged. And when Casa called, they had said, like, hey, we have fresh hops, malt, grain, all this stuff ready to roll. Like, can we get on your schedule here in the next week or two? And it just didn't happen for a long time. And the wheels started turning. I came home to my wife, Darian, and I said, I had this funny conversation today with the Casa guys, and here's what they went through. And we both kind of looked at each other and had this moment where, we've been trying to create a business of our own for a while and thinking of like different ways we could do it. And of course, like starting a brewery was one idea.
Right.
And then we realized that there was a void, after kind of doing a little research on this, a void in the space of the exciting world of mobile packaging. Not quite the most glamorous part of the industry, but as it turned out, there was definitely a void in the space, and we ordered our equipment within a few weeks of that, and 3 months later, I was driving to Colorado and then to Portland, Oregon to go pick up my Wild Goose canning line and then a fully automatic mobile depalletizer and other pieces of ancillary equipment that are required to essentially set up a full mobile conveyance line to go into these breweries and can their beers. Yeah. And I'm a smart guy. I used a lot of my prior experience in running events and other operational experience to go into this knowing that, okay, I can manage crews, I can figure out machinery, but I definitely didn't know everything about canning.
Right.
I did volunteer at a couple breweries locally, Island Brewing up in Carpinteria. They were good. The guys were good enough there to help me, or let me go and help out on a couple canning runs.
Yeah.
And before I got my equipment. And so then when I got it all, we actually set up at Casa Agria for a couple days and had our first canning run, our first couple runs at Captain Fatty's in Santa Barbara and Casa Agria in Oxnard. And those guys were patient with me while I worked with the Wild Goose technicians to train and understand all this stuff while on site canning their beers. And fortunately, the kind of cardinal rule in mobile packaging is don't fuck up anybody's beer.
Yeah.
So we didn't do that, and people continue to give us give us chances to package, and we got better and better at what we did, and here we are now 4 years later.
Right.
We've canned somewhere in the range of 7 to 8 million cans of beer for about. I want to say like 70 breweries, about 10 different wineries, cider houses, seltzers, CBD drinks, just about anything.
So that was a big hole that you filled.
We did, and we continue to be very lucky. Our business model has been a success for the most part. This last year in COVID was completely bonkers. We like everybody else, when it started, we didn't know what to expect, and fortunately, business was good to us. We kind of equate ourselves to like the guys in the gold rush selling the shovels.
All right, for sure.
We weren't trying to brag about how successful we were to anybody, because a lot of the people we were working with, a lot of our oldest clients, were really struggling during COVID. But we were the outlet for them to be able to get their beer into the world when they had no tasting rooms, they had no keg business, no draft business, to go to restaurants maybe that they'd been partners with. Really, the only way to do it was to sell out, to-go beverages in cans, and so we had a good year, and what that meant for us was not like reaping all the financial benefits. So we immediately turned that into how can we reinvest in the business and increase or improve all of our quality assurances and quality control standards. So we bought a bunch of equipment that was pricey, like Anton Par dissolved oxygen meters and other things that brewers definitely appreciate when you are bringing to the table, some stuff like this. They are all about having the most precise equipment that can guarantee, a quality product and a shelf life stability. And so, man, that's kind of where we were. It's been a wild ride.
That's good. That's how most successful businesses start, right? You find your void that you see.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you 3 weeks, right? You jumped on it.
Sure.
You didn't hesitate.
Well, it's like it comes out of a passion thing too. Like what is your passion? I didn't, in the moment when I was talking to the Casa guys about their first run, I didn't identify this was going to be my passion. What I knew was that I'd been a complete beer nerd waiting in lines, for all my favorite releases for the better part of 4 years, driving my wife crazy, coming home with bottles all the time. And I still have an incredible cellar of bottles and barrel-aged stouts and sours and all these things from a lot of my favorite breweries here in Southern California and abroad, because I was trading beers all over the country and occasionally internationally, and of course meeting other great people in the industry that were fellow beer nerds like myself, and who I've developed long-lasting relationships now. And I think in life it's I don't know if you can speak to this, but it's hard to when you're a young kid, when you're younger and you come out of high school or you come out of college, you have friendships that you develop in those worlds, and those friendships sustain if you put out the energy to do it, but then after that happens, maybe you have like occasional work relationships, with people or whatever that can evolve outside of work, and you can hang out and do all this stuff. But it's hard to make new friends in the world, to really have like true friends. And what I've found through this business is the shared love of craft beer I've really become close friends with a lot of people that we work with. And yes, it's a funny line between like, business and this person may owe me some dollars, but like, I'm still going to go have a beer with them, or like we're going to shoot the shit about all these amazing things that they're putting out creativity wise, whether it's the actual product itself or the artist that they may be using for can art or whatever it is. Right. These things have evolved in a lot of cases from, our shared love of beer and bringing these things out into the world. And so.
Because you hang out because you want to hang out.
Exactly,
not
man.
because you have to be there from 9 to 5.
Right. Well, it's not a bad job. I mean, like we're canning beer. Like whenever I'm training new employees in our business, I'm always like, guys, remember, this is not like we're not doctors or nurses. If something goes wrong, I mean, we don't want to mess up anybody's beer. But if something goes wrong, like it's not brain surgery. We're canning beer. So let's have some fun, enjoy ourselves, develop these relationships, continue to be positive about everything. And of course, this industry doesn't come without challenges. There are things that can happen, can take place, and we've overcome a lot of them. And you have to, like anything else in life, absorb the ups and downs both equally, and learn from everything, and not ever rest on your laurels and all that stuff. Because the second you get too comfortable, something's going to happen.
For sure. And you say it's not brain surgery, but there's still a lot of engineering and science that goes behind.
For sure.
Keeping a beer fresh and carbonated.
For sure.
Inside of a can.
It's true, man. And I was talking to my wife, who is a big Malcolm Gladwell fan, he always said, like, you have to do things 500,000 times. I think it was, no, spend 10,000. That was Andre Agassi said 500,000, but he was talking about tennis.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell said, do something for 10,000 hours
Yeah.
until you get good at it. And honestly, I don't think I got good at, like, really good at canning for a good year to year and a half.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I thought I was much better than I was in
Right.
the first 3-4 months, because you start doing things repetitively, just like anything, you build a muscle memory
Yeah.
to certain things. But evolving, having these sort of unconscious realizations that, hey, I'm now doing this more efficiently, or I'm getting a better result with foam, which we always try and cap on a quality foam,
Yeah.
by doing this and this. And then I think about, like, what led me down that path to get this place. And it's kind of like when your teachers used to ask you to show your work. Like, maybe you knew the answer to a math problem.
Yeah.
But then for them to say, like, okay, show me how you got from A to Z, and you're like, Jesus, how am I going to do that? All right,
Right.
I gotta now explain this. When I brought on new employees and having to explain, like, how I had to do all these things, that's where I actually got better as an operator. I would have to think about these things instead of just the inherent getting better at it by doing it a million times, having to then explain my work and go home. Sometimes I'd tell my guys, like, great question.
Yeah.
Let me answer it tomorrow when I have time to, like, think about
Yep.
how the best way to answer that and how for you to learn out of this is going to come into place. And so, yes, it does come with challenges, though, I think was the point of that. And there are still, like, even 4 years in, I never, ever want to claim that I'm perfect at what I do. I'm pretty damn good at it.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of incredible clients now that are really high end on the craft beer spectrum.
Yeah.
And that, whose clientele really expect a lot out of them.
Uh-huh.
And we are kind of like a silent partner with these guys. When we go in there and they trust us to handle their beverages,
Right.
like, we cannot screw their beverage up, because
Right.
they've spent a lot of time, a lot of money on these things. And so for them, for someone to come in and handle the beverage for even just the 10 to 20 seconds that it goes through our line and comes out the seamer on the end, that is a time where things can get screwed up. And if someone gets a beer that, for whatever reason, 2 weeks after it's been packaged tastes like cardboard, there's an issue that we have to figure out where that comes from. And we have really learned where to communicate as well as needed in advance of a run to promote the proper foam to cap on and all these other things that you have to do as a mobile packager to ensure that we don't have those type of conversations. Because
Right. And that's important, right? Because you don't work for, well, you work for them, but you're not in-house.
Yes.
And, like, always working on their
Sure.
power, their water.
Right.
You got to be there, perform when you have to perform.
Exactly.
But you want all that stuff taken care of.
Handled.
For sure.
And so I've learned as a result of that, like, to make sure to ask all those questions about, just the standard stuff at their brewery. Like, is X, Y, and Z working before we show up?
Yeah.
Because we can't show up and have, say one thing we talk about a lot in beer, in canning specifically, is a proper balance of carbonation and temperature on packaging day. And it's not the most interesting factor about it if you're just a layman, but it is so highly important, whether you're bottling, canning, even kegging. You don't want a beer to be too hot. You don't want it to be too cold.
Yeah.
In beer, in canning specifically, if I was to show up at a brewery and they had a temperature gauge off on one of their big bright tanks or fermenters, and say it with the beer was 5 degrees colder than what we had discussed the days leading up to the packaging run, we would then get a beer that, as we're pouring it into the cans, would not produce any foam. And one thing that the foam is doing is keeping oxygen from the packaging day drifting into the can. You want that foam to constantly be building until the lid drops on and it goes right into the seamer, so that it's keeping out any oxygen from settling inside that can. And we have other things going on. We're blowing CO2 into the cans both before and after the cans fill with beer. So you're really trying to push out any residual oxygen. But still, if you have no foam at all, that's a big shelf life killer. And so
you stop what you're doing, or do you say
we have for sure in the past. Sometimes breweries, if they've sometimes they choose not to, and we will warn them, and we will certainly make them sign off on a thing like that says like, hey,
process
this was
exception.
this during the canning run we discussed this as a potential killer of the shelf life or the longevity of this beer, but the brewer agreed to go on. Maybe the style of beer is not so susceptible to oxidation. It's called oxidation. So some styles of beer are a little less susceptible to oxidation, but like if we're canning like a hazy IPA, for instance, or a West Coast IPA, something with a lot of fresh hops, that's the type of thing you really want the perfect conditions on. So and then of course you have certain breweries that we treat everybody the same. We go on every canning run the same way. I always talk to people in the 24 to 48 hours leading up to a canning run to make sure that these things are in place to have a successful day. But But you still have these little things that go down, and on the opposite spectrum too. Sometimes you have a beer that's too warm and it'll foam out way too much, and other things can happen too, where you have to discuss. You stop in the moment. You discuss with the brewer.
Yeah.
Do we want to stop down, maybe move to a different beverage, and come back to this one while we try and either cool the tank or let the temperature come up? There are ways you can kind of play around with it, but sometimes you're kind of pigeonholed into maybe just one or two brands from a brewery on a specific day, and you just do what you got to do and promote the foam as best as you possibly can, and then hopefully the breweries are on board. Now, we have so much repeat business now with a lot of our key customers that they know what we need to have a successful day.
Yeah.
They know my type of communication that I'll have with them in advance, and all I'll have to do is send a quick text 24 hours out and say, just say, hey guys, how we doing? And then all of a sudden I'll get a response back with like exact carbonation volumes, exact temperatures of all the tanks that we're at. They know just by me saying how we doing what I'm looking for.
Well, it's a benefit to them, right?
Exactly.
They don't want cardboard beer either.
Exactly. And a lot of the breweries now that we're working with, like very established guys, like we're lucky enough now to work with Firestone, Walker, and their Propagator location.
Yeah.
These are seasoned professionals. Like they've come down from the Paso Robles location. They know where a beer needs to be to package properly.
Yeah.
Guys like Borowiak, down in Anaheim, who's one of our biggest clients here for the last 15, 16 months. Those are guys that came from, Monkish and Pizza Port and again, they just have they have an understanding,
Right.
and even people that when we first started with them 3-4 years ago it doesn't take much to start understanding where things may have gone wrong and where things need to be improved.
Yeah.
And obviously if there's even just one bad comment to someone's social media, you take that to heart and you try and all of us kind of get our heads together and figure out like where something may have gone wrong or could be improved in the process.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy process, man. Mobile packaging has in the past gotten a bad rap because people don't take these things seriously. They don't communicate it with their brewery. Like people on our side, the mobile canning side, don't do what we do and what we really pride ourselves in having, which is that great communication, not only in the day two before, but following up the runs. I'll text a lot of my guys down the road.
Yeah.
Like I'll have, we're lucky enough to have a lot of cans in our refrigerator at all times, and I'll crack cans 3, 4, 5 weeks down the road of something, and if it tastes like it was packaged the day before, I will just immediately jump on the phone or text my guys and be like, hey man, this one is sitting pretty, and just looking at the notes, like we did this and this, and it was successful on the day of, and here we are 6 weeks out with a beer that is like tons of fresh hops canned a month and a half ago. It tastes like it was yesterday,
right?
And that's when we can all sit back and smile and be happy with a product, and know that our processes are on point.
That's good. You do a lot of post-mortem
for sure
stuff. Man. I work street over. I don't think I can say that. I don't know if I should say the name or not. But I work in a clean room.
Yeah.
And it's all process and conditions and facilities and right. So I know how important all that stuff is. So if you want to nerd out, right, it's all good because I dig that kind of stuff. So
sure.
Do you remember your first beer that you canned? What was it called? What was it?
So we canned up at Captain Fatty's. Was our very first run ever. We had we did a couple of beers, and one of them was Beach IPA, I know, and we did a couple others. I don't remember the exact first beer.
Yeah.
But of course, I will always remember them as my first brewery that took a risk on us. What we did, and the reason people took a risk on us was one, the lead time for the only other company that existed at the time was 3 months. So when people wanted to get a beer canned, it was kind of easier for us to go in there. But we also bought the highest end equipment, and the whole saying, like, you get what you pay for.
For sure.
There was a certain guarantee that as long as we knew how to actually utilize the equipment, even at its minimum at that point,
right,
that we were going to get a quality product out of it, and we did. And then Casa Agria being soon after that. Noble Ale Works was one of our earliest runs too. They did a beer. It was a collaboration, and this again for me as a beer nerd, I was like totally, freaking out in excitement and nerves. It was a collaboration with Alvarado Street and Highland Park, and going into Noble on like basically my third or fourth run, knowing that these were three of the heaviest hitters in the game back in 2016. Like Noble was the kings at that point, and Highland Park was, with Bob Coons, like those guys were making amazing beer, and Alvarado just coming out the gates, like at the time, high respect from the brewing community, but still like kind of everybody in at least in California just starting to realize who Alvarado was.
Right.
So things like those were some early fun projects, and again, I mean, like I'm thankful to this day that those guys all were willing to risk working with a newer company like us, but fortunately we didn't mess up anybody's beer early on, and just continued to build our skills set and our reputation, amongst the community, and now I really feel confident that we have the best reputation in the community in Southern California. We're still a small outfit. We only have a couple of trucks.
Yeah.
So we're doing our thing 5 days a week at 10 different breweries, booked out every day, Monday through Friday. We will work during COVID. We worked, Monday through Sunday. It was every day. I had stretches of like 45 days in a row, then 1 day off, then like 37 days, and then 1 day off, and it was absolutely crazy. But the life was giving us an opportunity to have success during a very challenging time, and we grabbed it and we went with it, and so yeah, man.
How many employees do you have now?
I would say 7 or 8 employees. 3 or 4 of them are more of a full-time status, and then another 3 or 4 that are part-time.
Yeah.
Give us a couple days a week or a couple days a month.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And you started off with you and just you?
It was me and 2 other people.
All right.
Yeah, and that's how it was for a while. We only had 1 canning line for the first year and a half, and we went from having like a run or 2 a week to then suddenly getting 3 or 4, 3 months, 4 months in, until then, it was pretty much 5 days a week, and we were able to, make all the money back and then raise enough money to get a second line,
right?
And do our thing, and then now we have our second line and second truck going different directions, and we'll go anywhere from Central California to can wine, down to Southern Orange County.
Yeah.
We have a lot of breweries. In fact, a ton of our business right now is in Orange County. So we'll start the day in Thousand Oaks. Our employees will all meet at the ranch, and we'll drive to wherever we need to go. Spider out. We're in the Inland Empire.
Yeah.
Just pretty much wherever people want to pay us to go. We've been as far up as north as Santa Cruz.
All right.
For different things, different projects, and there's really not. We try not to be ever naysayers. If people come to us with different things, we always like to see if we can make it work before even if our inclination is like this is going to be tricky, or maybe you can tell that there's a personality that maybe is not going to gel so well, or we get approached also by a lot of people that are like startup businesses, and these last year and a half have been a lot of what are called RTD, ready to drink beverages, so like cocktail makers.
Yeah.
And so we've been fortunate to have established a little relationship with Ventura Spirits up here in Ventura. They'll bring in clients that want to have beverages canned, like cocktails, vodka cocktails, tequila cocktails, and then we'll get a call from either the third party contract RTD maker, or from Ventura Spirits themselves, and say, hey, can you guys come up here in a month and do your thing and package some cocktails? And so whatever it is, we're kind of game for. The first time we have something new, it's always nerve-wracking, but also exciting. We get to learn a new skill and how to handle maybe a much higher carbonated beverage or something to that effect. And but typically once we do it once, then it's under our belt, and we have that confidence, like anything else in life, right? Like when you started this show, you
put it down in your notebook and you say that didn't work. Yeah, for sure.
You have some nerves, and you learn what's good and what to avoid.
So it means you're going to make 16-ounce vodka tonics, or can 16-ounce vodka tonics?
So most of those are in 12-ounce cans. I know.
Right.
And so a lot of like the tequila, the vodkas, those things, they're actually, when they're coming to cans, they're either doing a smaller size can, or if they're going, or they'll go lower ABV, like a lower alcohol by volume, and then they can get a larger size can. But most of those we're seeing in like the 12-ounce sleek cans, which are kind of like it's similar to like a Red Bull style can.
Right.
And that's what you'll see a lot of those cocktails, the RTD beverages, or like seltzers. We're doing a lot of seltzer now, alcoholic seltzers for a variety of different breweries. Borowiak being our main client with seltzers for about the last 14 months. But everybody's kind of gotten into the seltzer game.
Whatever the customer wants, right?
Exactly. A lot of the brewers at first were like, hell no, we're not doing this, But I think not everybody, but a lot of them have come to realize like there's a market for it if it allows us to. And it moves quickly. If it allows us to make a beverage within like a 2-week time frame, because seltzer can be made by these breweries very quickly.
All right.
That's one thing people don't realize. Like a lot of the beers that people want to drink take 2 to 5, 6 weeks. Lagers, pilsners, they're more like 6 to 8 weeks. In most cases. But like, if you can get a seltzer and turn it around in 7 to 14 days, and then your tank's empty from canning day, people can sell those really quickly, and then it makes them money to do other projects, maybe that are more small batch or higher quality or whatever.
Right.
So, seltzers have been a thing that even I was kind of unsure of initially. I was like, I don't really want to know if I want to get into the seltzer thing, but what I've learned in this business, one thing I've really, anything that I'd previously had, I had a feeling about, like maybe a style of beer that I really loved,
Yeah.
or maybe a style of beer that I wasn't something that I would have been my go-to before having a canning business like this.
Yeah.
I've realized that, like anything else in life, man, quality reigns,
Yeah.
And if you have a quality product, then it's probably going to be good. So whether it's a really high quality seltzer, Borowiak has come out with some incredibly high quality seltzers.
Yeah.
Whether they're super fruited seltzers or have some other maybe inspiration through cocktails or whatever it is. A quality beverage is a quality beverage.
For sure.
And you catch me at the right time, like I'll drink a seltzer from time to time.
It's a party.
Or my wife will drink them more often than I will. But people like seltzers,
Right.
And so as much of a knee-jerk reaction I had, a lot of my brewer friends had, we're doing it.
Right. At the end of the night, if it's left in the cooler,
yes.
you're gonna grab one, right?
Sure, exactly.
Yeah, right. So before we got on, you were talking about labels.
Yes.
So adhesive, heat shrink.
Yeah, the heat shrinks, the shrink sleeve cans are called. So there are differences in the type of cans. So like you can see Leashless Brewing, who's one of our clients up in Ventura. They are doing mostly shrink sleeve cans here. That just is the style of can that arrives to them prior to a canning run with the actual label applied already.
Yeah.
So, and it covers the full body of the can here, as you can tell, like top to bottom, full body of the can. It's a really clean look. And anything can have a really clean look, depending on the label itself and the artist itself. But Leashless, they have pretty much, I can't think of anything they've done that's got a post fill. So I think they've all been being the shrink sleeve style.
Yeah.
And you can see like Borowiak has done the same thing. They actually have a really fun one here.
I like that can. That's pretty.
I know, isn't that
can.
cool? It's like the Penn tennis ball can.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite ones because my father was a professional tennis player for 17 years on the pro tour, and
all right.
And although I played a lot of tennis growing up, and my wife played a lot of tennis, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
When we got into this business, I never expected to be canning a tennis ball beer. I'll be honest, that was a fun one. But that one is also a shrink sleeve label, goes from the top to the bottom. The alternative to that is what we call a post fill adhesive label. You can see Casa Agria, who we packaged for a long time. They do it, and it doesn't cover the top part of the can or the very bottom part of the can. You've got a little layer right on the side here. But basically, we have a labeling machine that can apply these post-fills. So we'll run bright cans, which is just the silver part of the silver cans, unlabeled through all of our machines. They'll get rinsed with a low-dose Sani, filled with the beer, and then seamed in our Wild Goose seamer. And then they'll fire out and go into a labeler, in which then these labels will be applied. Third Window Brewing up in Santa Barbara did one as well. You can see Firestone Propagator is doing it now with their beers. And that's just during COVID, people realized that because they couldn't control what was happening, everything was out of their control, and we did need to go primarily to selling cans and selling bottles out the back doors or out the front doors to go. They wanted more flexibility to turn and burn the beers. And when you're talking about these shrink sleeve can labels, the process on this is to get the cans, the artwork approved is about 2 weeks, and then to get cans that have the shrink sleeves to arrive at the brewery is another 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
So you're looking at typically, and there are certain situations where you get them a little quicker or they might take a little longer, but you're typically looking about an 8-week turnaround, 8 to 10 weeks in some cases, versus these guys, you can order rolls of labels, these post-fill adhesive labels, in 7 to 10 days, and the bright cans will arrive in that same time period. So you're talking about 10 days versus 8 to 10 weeks. And
just the way the world runs now, gig economy, you can get your freelance guy to make your label quick, right?
Yeah, quick stuff, quick turnarounds. And when you look at stuff like Casa, they have an artist named Donnie Phillips who works with a lot of record labels and actual bands. He'll do like cover art for CDs and records. He met the guys at Casa Agria, I believe, through also just being a beer fan and a Casa fan, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And they worked together to create some labels early on.
Yeah.
And they were such cool labels. Some of my favorite can art in the entire can game is from Casa. They've had some of the most incredible, beautiful labels through this guy Donnie Phillips, and he continues to work with musical artists all the time. But when people are talking to me about like which route should we go outside of the time frame stuff, which can be a little lengthier. And if you're planning ahead, it's totally good to use shrink sleeves.
Yeah.
You know, larger scale independent craft breweries are typically will have like core brands and then specialty releases. So we'll see sometimes like their core brands will always be in shrink sleeve, the style where it's a full label, takes a little longer. But the ones that they want to do for like specialty releases, they'll do on the ones with post-fill labels. So sometimes we'll have like a mix and match.
Right.
You know, on any a given canning day, if we're canning 3 or 4 different brands of beer, you know, 2 of them may be shrink sleeve and 2 of them may be the post-fill adhesives. And you know, for us, it doesn't matter either way. We like doing it. But what I really was happy to have was create that shorter time frame during COVID for our clients, be able to have these labeling machines on all of our trucks to be able to offer that and get these things kind of out the door quicker.
Cool.
Because that helped them make the money and sustain. And you know, COVID, man, you talk about the biggest challenge ever for these guys. Like I watched some of these breweries be so creative and do things, had to think so far outside the box and get outside their comfort zones and do things. Small breweries that never thought they would even can.
Oh yeah, for
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
Like here in Thousand Oaks, we have Pedals and Pints, who really, you know, they opened literally the day that COVID shut the state shut everything down, and I felt terrible for those guys. We went to their industry party like literally the night or 2 nights before COVID had everything shut down for months, and they were never built to have canning going on, you know. But what they did was they brought us in about a month in, and maybe they thought they were only going to do one. Nobody knew how long it was going to last, you know.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, now we've packaged with them 7, 8, 9 times, and
and you can tell that their labels have changed. Right?
They have. They've
First
evolved.
it was like, you know,
fairly simple.
You're right.
Fairly simple, almost like slapping labels on, kind of like monkish style. You know, monkish. You know, back in the day, they would just have the little like circular stickers, and they had one side of the can, and the whole rest of the can was just still a bright can. Things evolve, man. You know, and I mean, when you're opening a brewery and you've spent that amount of money, like suddenly bringing in a third-party canning company and then having to pay for labels is not easy. So I imagine that they were probably just spending as little as they had to initially to get the beer out. But then when they started developing this canning program and having a few extra dollars to spend on labels and all that stuff, things happen as they allow, you know. And they're not the only ones, man. We worked with probably 10 different breweries that were so smaller, on the very small end, or were never built to have us. And we were finding...
Thanks for watching, guys. My name is Andres. That was Andres Borowiak from Boomhut Mobile Canning. This was part 1 of 2 of this video. We got to talking. We talked about lots of things, so I had to split this video into 2 parts. Please like and subscribe and share. If there's someone you want to hear on the show, hear their story, please tag them or forward this video to them. I want to get everyone in Ventura County who has a brewery or is in the beer game here in Ventura County here on the show. Please like and subscribe and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.